All right, in this segment of stack chain training, we're going to be talking about the use of stack chain in a climbing venue where you're going to use it as part of a single leg of a bridle. Now, in those kind of venues, you might have a leg of stack chain on both sides or just one side, but what matters is that the stack chain itself is at the highest point in the rigging assembly. Now, in here, we're using a piece of truss to simulate the I-beam. And of course, we've got some, some slings here, some steel flex slings going around. So this top part is not exactly the traditional rigging attachment that you might have, but it is still a basket with a shackle in it. What we're focusing on in this exercise is how we adjust the stack chain in the bridle. So what we're going to be doing is, as an uprigger, we'll be sitting up here on the beam. So we need to do this in such a way that we can adjust the stack chain with using our rope and the leverage of our bodies. So with the rope run through the closest part of the stack chain that we can reach, we're gonna run the rope through and back over the beam, and then we're gonna make a bowline. So we want that bowline to be somewhere we can get our foot in it. Now, because I'm physically, in reality, standing on the ground, I'm gonna make my bowline pretty far. But if I'm up here on the beam, I'm gonna make it right to where I can raise my leg and get it into the loop. And I'll show you what that action looks like with my bowline I'm gonna make. So remember, with your bowline, you're gonna make a overhand loop there, and then your tail of the rope is gonna come out of the hole, around the back of the standing end of your rope, and then back through that hole where it started. And then we'll tighten that down. Now, there's a lot of different variations of bowlines, a lot of different ways that you can secure them with additional knots and stuff, but we're just doing a traditional bowline today. Now, sitting up on the beam, I'm gonna put my foot in that bowline. So if you wanna take a look at where I'm putting my foot here, it's right there, all right? And then I'm gonna use my body weight and leverage to pick up and get a little slack on the stack chain. Now, how much slack I need depends on which way I'm going with the stack chain. Now, if we look at the bridle that we have simulated down here, we've basically got a pretty wide angle already, so it's not likely I'm going to be going much shorter unless it's absolutely necessary. What I'm going to do in this exercise is I'm going to add 2 more links to the length of my stack chain. So I want to make sure I don't put my bowline too far down, because otherwise it might be harder, it might get pinched and then I can't get to it. I want to make sure I can still somewhat reach it if anything gets weird in there. Now, when I'm sitting up on the beam there, I'm not just gonna put my foot in the loop and push down. I'm gonna grab the other side of my rope as well. And I'm gonna pull up as I push, okay? That's giving yourself some mechanical advantage there to get over the friction and the inertia that is required to get that weight moving in the air, all right? So I've picked up on it. You can see everything's loose right there. So for my next step, I'm gonna go ahead and break my shackle. And from there, we can see that everything is still in suspension. I've got control of what's going on here. So this was my point, and I said I wanted to add 2 more links. So I'm gonna add this link right here, and then go back into my shackle. All right, in reality, on the beam, I'd be laying face down on the beam, reaching down underneath it to do this work, which is, a lot less comfortable than the position I'm in now. All right, so I've gotten my second link there. Now, before I do anything else, I'm gonna try to make sure everything looks good. So I'm gonna start doing that. And then when my foot gets to a point where, it might be difficult to release, I'm gonna grab the other side of my rope, get my foot out of there before I let everything in completely. Now, a note about the way the stack chain is set up. As the uprigger, you're not gonna have a lot of control over what's going down on the ground. So you've gotta depend on your ground rigger to know what they're doing. Your ground rigger should be making this stack chain to where the tag end is outside of the load or outside of the tension. You don't want the tag down here on this side, because what could happen is it gets caught on a shackle pin or some other object, and then when things move and shift around, it'll break that ring right there, and then your tag comes flying down and hits somebody. All right, so your ground rigger, very, very important that they know what they're doing and that they back you up. Now, another thing about your ground rigger that's important is Like when I'm doing this kind of stuff on the beam, working at height, inherently dangerous to work at height, no matter how safe of a system or how much training you've had. So it's always best to leverage that ground rigger and have them help you out. So I'll do the initial break to get the tension off, like that. And then I'll have my ground rigger hold the rope. I'll get my foot out. So now I have complete balance. I'm not, being pulled one way or the other, and I can focus more closely on the alterations I have to make. All right, so we let that point back in. Now we made a pretty long bowline, and the reason for that is so that when we untie it, we'll go ahead and break it. Get all the knots and stuff out of our rope. And then when we pull our rope back through, everything comes back out with it. Now we can move on to our next point and make whatever adjustments we need to make.